What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be back to work on our 1966 Ford Mustang, and what I want to focus on today's video is trying to build the front shock towers for here. We did have some the tube set up, but I think we're actually going to go a different route because we did pull out our old Mustang right there. Well, it's our 2015 that we bought for parts, and I'm thinking we can use some of the parts from the shock towers to kind of morph them onto here. So let's go check those out over there. As you guys remember, this car was absolutely destroyed over there, but that's all good. And here's the shock towers. They seem like they're in good condition. They're not bent anywhere. And the main thing we want to use is probably just this area right here, this top cap right here, so we don't have to really do any cutting or welding onto that. And the cool thing is we can get the factory Ford specs, so we can get exactly the shock towers aligned perfectly, exactly how they are from factory Ford. So I think what we need to do now is start removing all of this stuff right here, all this wiring, because we are going to be using all of this wiring on our 66 Mustang. So I think the first thing we need to do is go ahead and start stripping down this car. So the first thing we're going to start with is removing this wiring harness right here. It goes all the way back into the cabin section. There's a couple grounds. Most of it's already almost taken off, but that's about it. It shouldn't be too hard. A bunch of plastic clips. So let's go ahead and get this thing off. So now that we have everything nice and stripped off, we're going to go ahead and use our Sawzall and cut these shock towers clean off of here. So we got everything off the car, all the wiring that we're gonna need. We still have a couple more things we're gonna have to take off, but that's gonna be a little bit later once we start building the firewall, because we don't really have space to put all this stuff. And then we got these, both of the shock towers nice and cut off. We did just cut them here, and then we drilled it out right here. I'm not too sure if we're gonna use any of this, but I just wanted to make sure. And then let's go ahead and take it to the other Mustang and see how they fit up. So let's go ahead and test fit this one on. This is the passenger side one. So it's just gonna slide up and through there, and that's just gonna save us a lot of time instead of building all custom brackets, and it's just gonna look a lot cleaner. So there we have it. It is hitting the frame a little bit right here, or this actually might be. So it is actually hitting the frame a little bit right here, and what I think we're gonna do now is actually drill all this out right here, because the main thing the main reason why we cut these things off is basically for this little pocket right here. So we'll probably go ahead and drill all these out and only use this main pocket, and then we can weld that to the tubes that we're gonna have for the aprons, and everything's gonna work out really nice. So let's get this on the table and get it all drilled out. So we have both aprons right here, and what we're gonna be focusing on is actually removing this area right here, all of these spot welds, because the main thing we're gonna be using is basically this nice circular pocket right there. So all this actually has to come off. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of drilling. It's gonna be worth it though, because this is some nice high strength steel, and we'll be able to bend our tubes and just weld it real nice to that. So let's get to drilling. So check this out, guys. We got the first one finally all drilled out. There's a lot of spot welds everywhere. Now let's go test that out over here. And now it's just gonna fit on top just like that right there. Bam, slides on top just like that. And then once we get all the tubes, we'll go and build something like this, because this is high strength steel right here, this bracket right here, which is gonna be really nice. It's gonna save us a lot of time, because I was planning on actually using just a flat plate and then drilling all the holes, but this is just gonna be a lot better. It's basically gonna be like OEM. So now let's go get the other side drilled out. So now let's go ahead and do the same thing we did on that one to this one. So we got both of these upper shock tower pieces on each shock, and now what we're gonna do is do a little bit of cleanup right here, get all these burrs off so we don't cut ourselves, and so it's nice and clean. And we also have to cut this tab off. Right here we have this tab on this side, and then we have another tab on that side. So we're gonna go ahead and cut it off, make it nice and smooth, and then we can start planning out exactly how we're gonna come off the shock tower. We did have some tubing earlier, but we're probably gonna have to redo some of that and put a little bit more thought process into this time. So let's go ahead and give this all a nice clean, and then we'll start thinking on how to mount it to the frame. So we have these top hats nice and cleaned off. We got all the burrs off. Now let's go put them back on, and we're gonna start designing the front shock towers. So So it's the next day here at the shop, and we got both shock tower tops on, and now what we need to do is start actually designing and building the brackets that are going to hold the shock tower to the frame. This is a really main component because we don't want this ever cracking or breaking. This is where all the weight is going to be that's holding the motor up. All the weight's going to be right here. So we got to do some strategical planning and designing, so let's get to it. So the way I'm going to be doing this is actually grabbing some more tubing. This is from the original one that we had built earlier, and we're basically gonna do the same thing, but I want to drill a hole right here. It's gonna be a 1.5 inch hole in the frame rail, and this is actually gonna slide all the way down in here, and we might do a nice little cut right here and then weld it all up real nice because we want this to be really nice and strong. So let's get some more tubing and do some more bending. So we have our first tube bent and cut, and it's gonna somehow go just like that right there. And now what we need to do is actually grab this hole saw, put it on a drill, and drill a hole clean through here. And this tube is gonna slip in there real nice and perfect. So we got the first one inside here, and everything's lining up really good, and it's gonna slip in there. And then what we're gonna do is either drill holes right here and do some nice spot welds, or cut a nice slit and then just weld everything up, and it's gonna be really nice and strong. Now what we need to work on is actually getting this bar over here. It's gonna go just like that, basically from our original setup that we had, but this is a little bit different. See, this bar needs to be cut just a little bit, and then we got a new tube notcher I'm about to show you guys. I'm super excited about that. So let's go ahead and do some more measuring and get this thing on the tube notcher to get this all lining up properly. So here's our new tube notcher right here. It is from Rogue Fabrication. If you guys remember, we do have the Rogue Fabrication bender. That thing works absolutely amazing. And we already did a couple of test cuts on this thing, and it's already working a lot better than this garbage right here from Harbor Freight. This one has really no adjustability, but on this one, you have a lot of adjustability. You can go all the way up just like this, and you can also move this area right here so you can notch certain areas of the tube. This thing's absolutely amazing. So if you're in the market for a new tube notcher, head over to Rogue Fabrication. They have everything you would need to get you notching tubes. So let's go ahead and notch our tube. So we kind of messed up on the tube notch. We need to move this piece a little bit over, and that will be gone, but it's like really millimeters. So we just cut that off with the grinder. Now let's go line it up on the car. So we have the first tube nice and lined up to the apron area right here. And if you're wondering why it is kind of at an angle, we actually have another Mustang over here that we've kind of been using as mock-up purposes. And as you can see, it is kind of slant down just like that. And we also got the caster correct. We had it a little bit off, but once we looked at this other Mustang, we realized the caliper bracket right here is supposed to be straight up and down, and the shock tower is actually supposed to be a little bit at an angle. So So that's how everything is supposed to be set up. And we have this one right here. Now we need to do a little bit more tube bending. I'm thinking we might do another bend right here, coming off of here and then going down here. So let's grab another tube and do some more bending. So we got all the tubes bent that we needed, and this one right here we're going to use for something else. We're going to have to put a bend back here. That's the only reason why we bent it. This is actually going to join both of these together. I'll show you guys that in a second. Let's go ahead and line up this bar right here. This is going to be one of the main bars that are going to come up through here, just like that, and that's going to hold like the fenders and the headlights up there. And then this one right here is going to come back here. We do have to do a little bit more trimming and basically replicate this bar right here and put another one back here. And this side apron is almost done, and then we can go ahead and start on the other side. So we got this side almost done right here. We just kind of lined everything up. We're not going to tack anything yet because we're going to take all this stuff off and basically replicate it for the other side so we get the exact same specs. But everything's looking good. Look at the notch. The tube notcher works awesome, a lot better than the Harbor Freight garbage that we had earlier. And then what we're going to do later is basically just weld all of this around. And we're obviously going to do a bunch of more reinforcing. That's going to be later. We just wanted to get the general setup going, and it's looking really good. And the cool thing about these coilovers or the airbag system is you can also adjust the camber, so if we need to do any of that, we can do all that later. And check that out, we got all the holes just perfectly cut. These tubes are just slipped in there really nice, so we'll be able to weld it super awesomely. Now what we're going to do is basically just take all this stuff off, because all it is on clamps, and replicate it for that side. And we'll basically have both aprons done on this car. That's a really big milestone. And then we can start on the back, which will be a little bit later. But once we get this thing into a rolling chassis, this build is just going to keep going super smoothly. So let's go ahead and get that side done. Pops just came to the shop. Hey Pops, come here. Let's see, what do you think of this?
I think it will be good.
Hey, that's all that matters right there. Now let's get started on the other side. So now we're gonna start working on this side. Now all we have to do is basically replicate everything from that side to here. Basically just measure everything up and it'll be exactly the same. So let's get started. So we got both of these nice and cut, and check that out. We're basically replicating exactly what we had over there. It's pretty hard trying to get everything nice and perfect. Now the last thing we need to replicate is the bar that's gonna come from here and go all the way down here. So let's grab another tube, hit it on the bender, and then we'll be able to put both sides back together and we'll see how awesome it looks. So we got all the tubes cut that we need. Now it's time to just go ahead and slap this side together and slap that side together, and we're gonna do some measurements and make sure everything is nice and straight. All right, guys, so we got both sides on. Everything is lining up pretty good. We're not even gonna do any tacking right now. All it is just on clamps. We still have a lot of trimming to do. We'll have to get some more piping because we did run out and we kind of ruined a couple of pieces. And man, let me tell you, this is actually really freaking hard. It took me a couple hours just to think on how I was gonna do it. It's a bunch of trial and error that you guys don't see on video. Maybe you should have put it in there, but it's all good. If you enjoyed today's video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Drop a follow on Instagram at Vtuned, and make sure you check out Vtuned.com to copy some merch. And don't forget to turn on your post notifications. Peace out.